Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Everyday Strong with Dr. Michael G. Daniels. This is your host, C.B. Baker. Today, Dr. Daniels, we was sitting here before I turned the cameras on and we was talking about, just being able to heal from your past and like how to heal, how that healing process takes place. And when it's complete, you're able to really move forward in life. And you've ran across situations, of course, as being a pastor and people coming to you. And then when you're counseling them too, you find out like things been happening deep in their life. We're talking like childhood or even, early adulthood, things they've experienced, things they've seen, and they don't realize that that stuff affects them and things they have done, to people that they haven't gave themselves for in order for them to move on. So let's talk about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. What you say is so spot on because, everybody wants to live a productive life. Everybody wants to live a good life. And what we're trying to help people do is to live every day strong, right? To get the most out of every day of your life. But what I find is that a lot of people can't do that because they have so much baggage, so much hurt, so much, the hope that many of us have has been drained from them based on past events. And so they carry that past into their present. And when you carry that past into your present, it's hard. It's almost impossible to wake up every day with a positive attitude. Mm-hmm. And if you don't wake up with a positive attitude, then it really destroys your ability to live a day, to the fullest of what you could get out of that day.
Yeah, it does. And especially if you're waking up, and people talk about this all the time. It's like, don't grab your phone. Mm-hmm. Don't turn on the news first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. I know as a pastor, the first thing you would like for people to say, but when I wake up, the first thing I do is get in touch with the Lord and pray and get in the Bible, right? And this really should be the first thing you do. Mm-hmm. But if you're not going to do that, wake up and do nothing for the 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Sure. So you at least you're starting your day off neutral.
As a minimum, start off neutral.
Right.
But, I tell anybody, there's no substitute for waking up and assessing the positive things in your day yesterday. What I find is so many people wake up in the morning and the thought on their mind is all the negative things that happened to them the day before. Mm-hmm. And so they're focusing on how can I correct the negatives. And I'm not saying you should not correct the negatives, but if you focus on the negatives of yesterday, then that becomes what you look for today. Mm-hmm. But if you wake up in the morning and you are thankful for what happened yesterday, because there's so many things to be thankful for in every day of our life. So for me, I like to wake up in the morning. And of course, as you mentioned, since I am a pastor and I'm a believer, whether I was a pastor or not, I'm a believer. So a part of my routine when I wake up is to thank God and to have a prayer life and a connecting with my Lord. But my connecting is not to beg. It is not that kind of connection. It is to thank God for all the great things that He did the day before, and then it puts me in a different frame of reference.
Right?
Because there's so many good things in the average day for me to be thankful for. Now I may have had one or two bad things happen. But am I going to allow the one or two bad things to overshadow the, 40 or 50 good things that happened that day?
Right.
But if I wake up always working on that bad thing, then it kind of changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah. And, one thing I will say, Pastor, if I wake up and, sometimes you just have those days like, okay, this is shaping up to be one of those type days. It works for me. Sometimes I will take a 15-minute nap.
Yeah.
And just center myself, take a 15-minute nap or just chill out and then essentially start the day over. And it could be like at 3:00 in the afternoon. Like, my morning didn't go too great and my early afternoon ain't really, okay, let me stop it right here. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that I have the power over me to be able to do that. And what's funny when I do that is my little trick. Next thing I know, the day goes on and nothing else bad happens and a few good things start to happen. But how many people Dr. Daniels, that miserable thing that happened to them or that bad thing in the morning at 9:00 morphs into something else at noon, morphs into something else at 3 o'clock on a Monday. The next thing you know, they look up, it's Friday, and they've had a whole bad week, and it just snowballs into months and maybe possibly years.
Right. And I'll say this, when you really boil it down, though, I don't think it's so much that they're experiencing bad things each day. I think what happens is that bad thing that they experience, they won't let go of
it. Right.
It stays in their head. So, in order for me to live, every day strong, in order for me to live every day moving forward, an injury to my consciousness or injury to my soul is just like an injury to any other part of my body. I have to heal it before I can start using it again. But we don't tend to look at it that way. See, if you were to break your arm, for example, you wouldn't think to yourself, well, I can start back using that arm to lift things while it's still broken. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the doctor. You're going to have them x-ray it. You're going to have them confirm what the problem is. You're going to have them set it. You're going to have them, you're going to rest it. You're going to do whatever it takes to get it back healed. And then you're going to rehabilitate it so you can get back into that, that process. When we are hurt, I guess we can call it heartache because, that's how we tend to think of it as opposed to a mind thing.
Right.
When we are hurt, we don't stop to assess the hurt. We don't stop to figure out what do we need to do to heal the hurt. And we don't allow time for the healing process. And we don't bandage it up and then we don't rehabilitate from it. So many people who have pain in their past, rejection, let's say, in their past, who have been cast aside or who have been things put upon them that they shouldn't have had put upon them, and when they lose that hope, when that their sense of self is degraded, they don't get rehabilitated from that. But yet they keep trying to use that same thing over and over again without a healing process taking place. You cannot live strong mentally until you have healed mentally, just like you can't pick up weights until you have healed.
Right.
And I think that's what people need to start doing. So just like I'm going to seek a doctor for a pain in my arm, I need to seek help for pain in my brain, whether it be my pastor, whether it be some mental health, official, a professional, whatever. But I need to seek that help. And then I have to go along with the prescription they give me so I can be mended. And I have to allow for that period of time. And then when it gets mended, I have to understand that what happened is what happened past tense.
Right.
The more I dwell on it, it stays present tense. And so every day becomes a present tense when it happened 5 weeks ago or happened 5 years ago. And so if you keep it in your present, it becomes a part of your present. So you can't live that day to the fullest extent. So really what we are experiencing is not the pain of today, but the pain of yesterday.
Right.
And we just keep putting it fresh in our heads every day because we haven't healed from it.
Yeah. One thing that I have done in situations like that, if I'm just sitting around and then a thought enters my head of something that happened in the past, and I get like, man, I really did mess up. But then you know what centers me? I say, you know what though? If that wouldn't have happened, my 2 kids wouldn't have been born. So it must have meant to happen.
Sure.
So that's what really kind of centers me, like stuff that, like when I played ball in college, when I was injured and why I didn't do this and why I didn't do that. But if one thing happens different, my 2 kids are not born.
Right.
If I do one decision different, so I can't go back and look at it and say I made a mistake. I said, no, I made the right choice. And that helps me.
And life happens sometimes, right? Let's take a worst case scenario. Let's say that my mother had abandoned me at birth. Let's just say she did.
Right.
Let's say my mother had abandoned me at birth. So I'm raised by someone else. So, that puts a kind of feeling in me that fear of abandonment.
Right.
That sense that nobody loves me. Because if my mother didn't love me, that meant nobody loved me. Well, and I get that. That seems to make sense, but that's
Right.
not reality.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying we have to heal from the hurt. Because, when we go back, and this takes sometimes professional guidance, if I really break down that pain, what I find is this. Let's say it is absolutely true that my mother didn't love me.
Mm-hmm.
The person that raised me must have.
That's right.
Because they raised me. Let's say my mother's abandonment was for whatever reason. The other person did not abandon me because they raised me.
Right.
So really when you think about it, what I'm doing is I'm judging the world based on one person. See, I'm using that one person as kind of a standard and saying everybody is like my mother. When that is not true.
Right.
Because everybody's not like my mother. So then what I do, I look for, and as you pointed out when we're just, having conversation, is anytime something resembles what my mother did, now that kind of helps me to affirm that I was right about, life in general, which is not how you want to deal with things, because that suggests I haven't healed from my past yet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I have to do really is go back, and this is a part of the healing process, is I need to go back and find out why my mother abandoned me. Why was she not there? She could have been abandoned me because she was a teenage pregnancy, right?
Right.
That could have been it. It could have been because she was on drugs. That could have been it. It could have been any number of things. But when I look at what she did, perhaps it was because in her mind, that was what she needed to give me the advantages that she could not give me, which meant really that's the greater love. See, the greater love is not to hold on to me and allow me to suffer. The greater love is to release me so I can be better. When I go back and I assess all that, it'll help me to see things in a clearer light. And once I see those things in that clearer light, it'll help me to realize that, wait a minute, I am special and I am loved. Because she loved me enough to release me. The person that raised me loved me enough to raise me and give me all the advantages that they did not have to do because they were under no obligation to pay for me, no obligation to give me a place to stay and to feed me, those kind of things. So once we lock that in, it'll help me to actually put that in the rear, because we don't do that. Once I put that in the rear, then I can move on. I can't tell you how many times I have dealt with couples where the husband will say something like this. She will not let me be me because of how the other guy treated her. And so every time I do something, it's always, that's what he did. And that hurts me when you do this. It's almost like she's always using the pain of her ex to the current guy who's still there with her. See, he hasn't abandoned her. He's still right there, but he's bearing the brunt of what somebody else did. That's what I mean when I say you can't live strong today if everyone has to bear the brunt of what happened yesterday.
Yeah. And and also learning from that, like learning from what happened. Like once you recognize what happened, learning from it, and then being able to say, okay, now I can forgive. And then if something that you've done, then you can forgive yourself.
Right.
Right. And that's really big points there. And Pastor, how does a person break the cycle of constantly attacking themselves? I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm so stupid for doing that. Or why did I do that? Back in the day, my mom used to tell me when I do something stupid, she'd say, well, you got S for brains. Now I laugh about it. I know she really didn't mean it, but I really did do something stupid. Right. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, but there's people out there that constantly hear that.
And that's a problem, because here's what I find. When you look at people that were constantly criticized when they were young, when they were not made to feel important when they were young, they tend to have those feelings of a defeatist attitude as an adult, and so from a therapeutic standpoint, what we are taught to do is to help them actually go back and see, is it that they were not up to par, or was it the expectations of the person greater than what it should have been? Because see, once you can put it in the perspective, not through the eyes of the person that was putting you down, but from the perspective of reality. Oftentimes parents, especially educated parents, will project their own intellect on their child. And so their thing is, yeah, you're stupid because you are 6 and you're not acting like a 12-year-old. You're not acting like, a much more mature child. But when you look at the behavior of that person when they were 6, what you deduce is, wait a minute, that's what 6-year-olds do.
Right.
And so once I can help you see that you were acting based on your age, you really were doing what people your age do. And you really were making the same kind of mistakes that other people make.
Exactly.
And then once you can see that what you were doing was the norm, oftentimes what you'll find is what you were doing was not the norm. You were ahead of yourself. It's just the other person's expectations for you were so great.
Right.
When we can fix that and let you see that, then you'll begin to see yourself different. And once you see yourself different, it will allow you to then not just, I won't say make better decisions, it will allow you to be more confident in the decisions that you make. Because here's the reality of life. Decisions are only bad if the outcome is bad.
Right.
Bad outcome don't mean bad decision.
Right.
Bad outcome could mean you had people that were supporting you that didn't know what they were doing.
Right. And bad timing.
It's any number of things, right? So, and that's what you have to help the people, from a therapeutic standpoint, that's what we want to help people to understand is that, let's say you change jobs, right? And when you change jobs, the economy plummets, so you get laid off. Well, that don't mean it was a bad decision to take the job because you couldn't foresee the economy collapsing.
That's right.
It just meant, like you said, the timing may not have been there, but that doesn't mean that you made a bad decision per se. It's just circumstances of what, they were. So we have to gauge it with a sense of reality, put it in perspective, put the right measuring point in place, and move on from there.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to ask is, where does prayer and speaking with God fit in with this? Like, say you're a person that they don't have too many friends, or you don't trust other people with this type of information. And I own a mental health company, so of course I'm going to say go get counseling and things like that. But let's say for the person that just says, okay, I don't maybe need that right now, but I need something. How do they go about praying to God about getting help or fixing their problem?
Well, let me say this. I'm going to talk about that too, but let me say this. I'm a firm believer that if I will go to the doctor because I have high blood pressure, if I will go to the doctor because I have high cholesterol, if I go to the doctor because I think I may have the flu, I should not avoid the doctor because I'm having emotional issues. Generally speaking, I let the professional tell me if I need medication. I mean, that's what we do.
Right.
We go to the doctor examines us, and the doctor says, yes, you do need medication, or we can control it with diet, or you do need to see a specialist or whatever. When it comes to mental health, we don't do that.
Right. Right. You're right.
So I'm saying that you don't avoid a professional just because you are saved. You don't do that, right? That's point number one. So I would say to anyone, if you find yourself crying all the time, let's say, if you find yourself where your eating habits are changing, you don't want to eat, you lose enthusiasm about life. If your sleep habits change dramatically, talk to your primary care physician. Let them know what's going on. Let them help you get the help that you need. It may not be medication. It may be counseling, but you want to rule other things out first because it can be, something that's more dramatic, So just want to put it on the table. Now, do I believe that prayer works? Absolutely. Do I believe that prayer can change things? Absolutely. But here's the thing. we have to understand that education goes hand in hand with prayer life. In other words, no matter how much I pray to God, if I don't understand the God I'm praying to, it won't change how I feel about me. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the thing that one needs to understand is how important they are in the whole scheme of things. So if I am feeling like I am not important, I need to understand how God sees me. And I can only understand how God sees me by understanding God and coming to know about him, what he was willing to do on my behalf, the things he do for me every day. Because generally speaking, we view ourselves as being important based on the sacrifices others are willing to make on our behalf. Mm-hmm. Right? In a relationship, if that person is willing to make great sacrifices for you, you believe that person values you a whole lot. Right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. The more I know about what God did for me, the more I understand the value he places on my life. And if he places that kind of value on me and he says I am valuable, that should help me to understand my importance in the situation. The irony of life is this. People will accept more what people say than what God says.
Right.
You know, and I'll use church as an example. There are people who will leave the church because they say, nobody seems to like me in the church, right? Mm-hmm. So, but God never said he didn't like you in the church.
Right.
And when I say leave the church, I don't mean leave the local church. I mean walk away from the church in general.
Right.
Because they say that feel that way. But God never said he didn't like them, right? He never said, I don't like you, stop coming to church.
Right.
But it could be one person that they have an argument with, in the church, and they done for good. It's almost like we will believe man faster than we will believe God. When God's words tells us how much he loves us, how much he wants us, how much he treasures us, we will accept man's point of view over anything else. Not only that, we will accept the negative over the positive.
Yes.
All day long. One person can say, I'm stupid. And 25 can say, no, you're not. You're smart.
Right. And
we will spend all day worrying about what the one person said rather than taking the 25 at their word. Mm-hmm. And that to me says when you do that, it means you yourself have something that you haven't quite cleared up yet. And that's why I said earlier that oftentimes we're carrying baggage that we don't even know we have. Mm-hmm. And we got to heal that baggage so we can move on.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is like when you go out and meet new people and, you're out on the road or you're doing something, and then sometimes you can see the person's baggage clear as day, mm-hmm. and they don't even know they have it. Sure. Sometimes you're like, well, I ain't gonna deal with this person. I already know they got something going on with them. Like mm-hmm. You can just feel it, or, you be out with the guys, man, don't mess with her, or she crazy, mm-hmm. and then if you happen to run into her, he's like, well, she seem okay, but like you said, you'll trust what somebody else would say
over right. Anything else. I'm telling you, I have had not a whole lot of folk, but I've had people at times, treat me like I was stupid. Right now, I kind of smile on the inside because I'm thinking to myself, you must be stupid, right. Because I'm so confident in my own intellect. I'm so confident in my own knowledge that, you're treating me or you calling me stupid doesn't even bother me. Because I'm thinking to myself, that's good that you think that way. That tells me that tells me where you are, right? Rather than telling me where I am,
right?
But that stems from from not where I am as an adult, but to be honest with you, I believe it stems from where I was as a child. I've mentioned this before. See, as a child, I always got positive feedback. I don't recall getting negative feedback until I was, a teenager. Well, see, by then you kind of really developed, mm-hmm. and the negative feedback as a teenager, wasn't, what I would call necessarily bad. It's, when your parents will say something like this, you're acting just like your daddy, right. I ain't really negative feedback because acting just like my daddy wasn't negative to me.
Right.
Might have been negative to my mother, but it wasn't negative to me.
Right.
So I'm just saying those kind of things. And I think they have a great influence. I think a lot of people, because as a child, they weren't given that positive feedback. And I'm saying this to some of the parents. I want parents to understand, we know how it made us feel, but then we don't stop to think how we're making our children feel.
Right.
And the impact it's going to have on them down the road, And so we need to make a concerted effort to make sure that we always give positive feedback. We always lift our children up. And we also need to understand that just because someone else says I am nothing, that it never means I am nothing. You got to look at, we always say things like this: consider the source.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need to consider the source.
That's right.
Consider where the information is coming from, not just the information. In times past, people would say, beware of the dog that brings the bone, rather than just worrying about the bone that was brought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on that. Because the messenger will bring you some stuff, but it's just real life lessons here. And the crazy thing about it is, you think, like when you're around 25, I got this. Mm-hmm. Then when you hit 30, you're like, man, I ain't have it at 25. I got it now. Mm-hmm. 35 hit. I ain't have it at 30. I got it at, and a person, I forgot who it was. It was like, you basically hardly ever really truly get it because you mature all the time.
One would hope, right? One would hope. But again, it's age appropriate. Now, see, to me, here's how I live your life. The wise person understands that you don't gauge yourself by where you're going. You gauge yourself by where you are, right? And so for me, the question is, am I acting age appropriate? I mean, that's really it. Did I make decisions at 25 like the average 25-year-old? If I did, I'm comfortable. I'm more than comfortable. At 30, did I make decisions like the average 30-year-old? Not that I make decisions like, Mark Zuckerberg, because he wasn't average.
Right.
So that's not what I'm gauging by. I'm gauging by the average 25-year-old. I look at decisions I made in life. Were they the best decisions? Do I regret some of them? Yes. But the question is not, do I think they were stupid? I regret them because I could have done it differently. For example, at the age of 15, I was working a full-time job. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, looking back, do I wish I had not done it? Yes. Not because I think it was such a bad decision. It's because a lot of the things that I wanted to enjoy about being in school, I did not enjoy, Right. Even when I played sports, fortunately for me, the coach accepted the fact that I was working, Right. And because I would, like, for example, there were times, especially by the time I was 16, I was driving, I would go to the track meet, do my event, get in my car and go to work. And coach would let me do it.
Right. But you ain't get to spend time at the track meet with everybody else, watching everybody.
I didn't hang out, Right. I didn't ride back on the bus and enjoy the camaraderie on the bus. I played baseball. We win a game, I'm gone.
Right.
And I enjoy the camaraderie of people, of getting back to the school and everybody saying, yeah, and going through all this kind of stuff, just normal stuff. But does that mean it was a horrible decision? Because the bottom line is this: you take the average 15, 16-year-old and offer them a job, but they can make some money. And guess what they do?
Right.
They take the job.
Right.
So I made a decision, that the average 16-year-old or 15-year-old would have made. That the average 16-year-old would have made. The same thing was in college. I made those decisions that people in college make at that age. Now, would a 30-year-old have made that decision? Probably not. Mm-mm. So that's how I look at it. I think that's what people need to do. You need to look at your decisions, look at where you are based on, was it appropriate at that age? Now, I'm at an age now where, of course, my decisions are different than they were back then. Mm-hmm. But, if you do it that way, I think most people will find that, you know what? I'm not as stupid as people told me I was. Mm-hmm. I did what people that age did, If you were in college, for example, and you got a letter saying that, you can have this credit card. And you took the credit card.
Right.
And you ran it up to the max.
Right.
Then when you're 30, you'll be saying, I don't know why I did something so stupid. but you did what every college student did.
Go to TJ Maxx. You want a TJ Maxx card?
Right.
No, I do not want a TJ Maxx card.
Right. But now you don't.
Right.
But back then,
yeah, sure.
Sure.
Hook me up.
That's what we did. Because
Right.
what? Hey, I can go there and get some clothes. I can do this and do that.
Right.
It was what we did at those ages. So that's, to me, is how you look at your life. If you look at it the other way, you're always depressed because you're always thinking, man, I should have did this. I should have did that. My God, I'd have been here if I did it. No. At that time, did I make a decision that made sense for me at that time?
Mm-hmm.
If it did, move on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now that I know a lot more about real estate and things, and when people come up to me and say, CB, I'm renting and renting an apartment. I'm thinking about buying a house. And the first thing I say is, are you used to living in an apartment? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I said, go buy a duplex,
mm-hmm.
Or quadplex. It's the same loan. And then you got the other 3 people paying you to stay there for free.
But the thing is what? Is that before you buy a house, you don't think that way.
Right.
Right. And you don't know. I give you a classic example, right? My first house, I got a 30-year loan. Right? Mm-hmm. Now I was a finance major.
Right.
I was a finance major.
You got a 30-year loan.
But I got a 30-year loan on my first house. Did I regret it? No. Why? I ain't stayed there 30 years. I moved anyway.
Right.
So it was like it was a bad decision. Now I do know that was not the best decision. But that don't mean it was a bad decision to get a 30-year loan.
Right.
But as I progressed and I started thinking about, wait a minute, what did I learn when I was in school? Because, when you first get out of college, you don't necessarily apply everything you learned. Mm-hmm. Then you start thinking about, wait a minute, what did I learn? Oh, I don't need a 30-year loan. Let me get this kind of loan. Right. Then you get the loan that best fits where you're trying to go.
Right.
As opposed to just accepting the loan that somebody gives to you. But again, the average person, when they buy their first house, I say the average person, not everybody, because there are some people that do get different types of loans. Mm-hmm. But the average person just takes the loan that they offer them, which is usually a 30-year loan on a mortgage.
Right.
And that's just the way life is. The average person, when they get a loan, they get an FHA loan. Right. That's because that's what they offer them. So I don't feel bad about doing it that way. Not at all. I don't feel bad about getting a 20-year loan. I don't feel bad at all because on the home I'm in now, I got a 20-year loan. Now, I didn't get not one 20-year loan on any rental property I had. Always 15-year loans.
Yeah.
Always 15-year loans. But I don't feel bad about getting a 20-year loan.
Right.
Because at the time, that's what made sense at the time.
And then not to mention that you can fix that issue by just paying a little bit more.
Well, I paid it off in a lot less than 20.
Right.
But I'm just saying, even if I couldn't fix it, my point is that even if I stayed there and paid it, took 20 years to pay the house off, what does the average person do in their mid-30s when they buy a house? Do they buy a house and get a 15-year loan? The average person doesn't.
No.
So when I look at it from that standpoint, when I purchased a home, I'm in my mid-30s, about 35 years old. I did what the average 35-year-old do. Actually, I did better than the average 35-year-old because the average 35-year-old would have got a 30-year loan. I got a 20-year loan. Right. So I don't feel bad at all. And that's what I'm saying about decision making. And that's what I'm saying about helping people understand that just because other people say what you did was bad, doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. And you have to stop telling yourself that what you did was bad. You have to really look at what you did and look at the results of it and ask yourself, were the results that bad? Really, let's say you marry somebody. That was a stupid thing to do. Why'd you marry that fool? Well, who knew the fool was a fool before I married him? Right. If you knew they were a fool, you wouldn't have married them. But, if when you do that, you keep beating yourself up. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to keep beating yourself up because then that keeps lowering your view of you. Right. And it keeps you feeling uneasy about things that you do.
That's right. Well, getting to the end, is there anything else you'd like to bring?
No, I think we kind of stretched the topic out this time. Yeah. I'm hoping people will, I just hope that people will understand the need to heal before you can move on. I think that's the primary thing I want to get out of here. Yeah. That you can't progress and be happy in your future until you have resolved the pain of your past. You just can't do that. And you cannot assume that you can do that by yourself.
Right.
You know, I think
Yeah.
people need to understand that sometimes it really does require professional help. Every pastor is not a counselor. By virtue of being a pastor does not make you a counselor.
Right.
You know, it requires training.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I believe that God isn't God, you know.
Right.
But Luke himself was a physician, even though he wrote one of the Gospels.
Yeah.
So the fact that God used a doctor says doctors must be all right.
Thank y'all so much. This is your host, CB Baker. Till next time.